The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, I think we are live. Is that correct, Mildred?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Okay, so today we've got mostly community Q&A, but I always like to do, I like to theme the community talks with how to get what you want, which I feel is really the benefit of open source is a wonderful thing because we have the power to not just use the software, but to have it available to us all the way down to the source level, and we can do whatever we want. And so as we look at where we are as a community, and I've gotten some outline, a little bit of an update of some of the teams we're building and so forth, the theme here will be how to get what you want. And we'll take a look at how that plays out here. I'm also going to apologize in advance. We have, as we see on the screen, some fonts that are a little off. I do all my presentations in LiveCode. That's usually a very good thing. Today we've got a little bit of a technical issue, but I think most of the slides are going to be okay. So with that in mind, let's dive in. The biggest thing that we have here coming up, oh, beautiful. There we are. Okay. So we have big changes coming up. So let me just recap where we are. As you know from all the work you guys are doing with the Global Jam, lots of changes happening with our versions. Version 6 is becoming end of life soon. That means it will no longer be supported. This isn't happening right away. It's still a supported platform for now, but it is flagged for EOL soon. I don't know exactly what that date will be, but it has served its life well. It served its purpose, and it's time to move on. The big thing with version 6 is that it gave the team a chance to have the COCO tracking separately from the other large scopes of work that we're doing on the main branch. So after the COCO version got done, after 6.7 got done, then we were in a place where all that stuff could be folded into 7. And 7 is the current version. It's very much our center stage is what the rest of this slide should read. And version 7 has incorporated not only all of the version 6 things, but in addition to that, we have some 2,000 bug fixes and enhancements. So it's been really quite a, sorry, having these fonts cut off is a bit distracting. It's been a good ride with version 7. It's been a long haul getting here, but it's kind of shaping up to be a really good version. And the other great thing about version 7 is that it lays the foundation for what is becoming version 8. So in essence, much of the engine, the scripting that we use, is still present with version 8, and version 8 has some extra things. In terms of capabilities, let's take a look at how that plays out. With LiveCode now, this is version 7, we have our scripts, the language you know and love. These are handled by a scripting engine. Beneath that is what I like to think of as the core engine, and that's where the scripts interface with the operating system and handle the file I/O and the rendering and that sort of stuff. And then that talks to the operating system below it. Coming up in version 8, we have the same scripting language that you know and love, the same scripting engine, but we now have something new. We have the Builder engine. LiveCode Builder gives us the additional capabilities that define version 8. So as we look at how this happens with specific features, with LiveCode 7, we have LiveCode the scripting language, and we have built-in objects, which are, you know, the things that we use, our buttons, fields, scrollers, those types of things. And, you know, as a side note, if you work with other languages, I think you'll appreciate that one of the great things about LiveCode is that it's one of the few languages that has truly integrated object support, GUI object support. Most other languages, and there are some great ones out there, they deliver a really great language, and then after they're done, it's almost like an afterthought. They say, oh, you wanted to make an application. So then there's third-party widgets to supply the controls, and you sort of graph those in. But what we love about LiveCode is that it has support for file I/O and arrays, and also in that language, buttons and windows and fields are also direct parts of the language. So we appreciate that the objects, there is such a richly integrated set of built-in objects. And then this next item would be custom controls if I was on my Linux box where I made and the custom control allow us to combine LiveCode objects into all sorts of things. And probably the most famous custom control we use is the data grid, but there are many others out there. And a big chunk of what I'm building these days, even if I'm just doing, one or two custom objects, I'm finding that being able to group them and use the special properties and messages that we have for custom controls has just been a godsend. And of course, driving all that is behaviors, so we can have centralized code that is assigned to any number of objects to keep our code well maintained and easy to update. And then when you need extensibility, we have externals. We've had this for years, and this family of languages has had this for years. So you can work in a language like C or C++. There may even be interfaces for Pascal, and you can talk to OS APIs that way and have access directly to anything else going on in the operating system you're running on. So with version 8, we have all of those same elements, plus more things. We have foreign handlers, which allow us to talk directly to the OS API right inside of the LiveCode Builder scripting language. And we also have widgets, which are sort of a more easily packaged, more self-contained variant of built-in objects. So the important thing with version 8 is all the stuff you're writing now continues to work. And with version 8, it'll be augmented by additional capabilities. So with all that work going on, oh, this slide is a bit of a disappointment. The first bullet point item is gone. Okay, we'll work with this. With all the work going on with the engine team, there's an opportunity for us as a community to step up to the plate to help with things that we can do. And what we find is that a lot of the most meaningful work happens in teams. And we've been putting together teams for specific tasks. This first point item on a better machine reads documentation. We've been assembling a documentation team to help make sure that the docs are accurate and complete. And the team has been doing significant work internally to take the documentation out of the various formats they were in and bring them into Markdown within GitHub. If you've used Markdown, you may appreciate what a joy, because it's a really simple way of doing formatted text, and because it's in GitHub, all the changes are immediately shareable and reviewable and integratable with the build system. So it's a good place to be. If you have an interest in helping to clean up the documentation or expand it, we have some needs for a little bit of new content as well as the features grow. Let me know. My last slide will have my email address on it, and hopefully that'll show up. So as we get on to that, then feel free to drop me a note for any of these teams, because we can always use more people on that. In addition to the documentation team, we also have a translation team. We have people who are anxious to translate this documentation into Spanish, and we may also have a team to translate this into Chinese, and maybe others down the road. So that's an exciting step we'll have going forward. We also have an educational outreach team, and this is especially important in the LiveCode world, because LiveCode has a long history of playing a very valuable role in education. So Schaefer, and the object here is to make sure that we have information, tools, resources, both for learning and also for doing work with LiveCode in the classroom or supporting any aspect of a teacher's work. So as that team grows, I'm hoping we can see even some additional tools that we don't have in the community yet. For example, Moodle integration or other integration with learning courseware servers would be a nice thing to see. And in the forums, there's been an ongoing discussion about SCORM, which is a standard for integrating with learning management servers. So I'd like to think that as that team grows, we'll be able to see a lot more very interesting projects to support education. Then we have integration, which originally said integration tools. And the thought here I'll get into a little more in a moment. But integration is, how do we integrate work on the IDE or other scripted components within LiveCode? This is a long-standing challenge that many of you are familiar with, but for those that aren't, LiveCode has a binary stack structure, which is a really great thing for us because it lets us choose when we want to combine interface elements and code and data, and when we don't. The rest of the world makes software that is comprised of hundreds of tiny text files, and there are great version systems set up around those workflows for other systems. this provides a disadvantage for us because now we have these binary files. We need to find a way to integrate that. Now with the engine work is already written in C. It's already set up with things like GitHub, but with LiveCode stacks, which the IDE is made of, the team has been moving to centralizing that code into script-only stacks for the libraries. So that part of it's moving along well, but interface elements are still often made in binary files, and we need a way to be able to integrate those. So the goal with integration tools is to find a way that we can either, within the LiveCode stack file, make it easy for the team to rapidly identify changes between a submitted version and their master. And then once they identify that, they need to be able to review those changes and be able to merge changes into their master file. So whether we do that within LiveCode binary files or XML files or some other intermediary format is something we'll have to look at. But that's what the integration tools is. Then we have special projects, and I've got a list of those I'm going to show you. And then there's what do you want to do? And this is something, as I finish up this little intro for a Q&A, keep that question in mind, because the whole theme here is how to get what you want. And maybe there's a project you're working on and you would be able to go on so much faster with that if you had a certain library or a certain component. And it could be that there's someone in the community who has an interest in that. Maybe they have part of that built, and all you need is just to know who that person is and bring you together to collaborate. So, and that's part of what I do in this role of community manager. So there's a lot of opportunities here for us to move all sorts of projects forward. Let's take a look at, oh, this slide is also disappointing, but easy to explain. Let's take a look at the special projects that I have in mind, and I'm going to propose a couple for us to consider as well. But before we do that, I wanted to frame the conversation by noting the role of community in defining a platform. So here the title says, Platform is Community. And it kind of is, because if you wrote the world's best scripting language and nobody used it, what good would that be? But when a language is used broadly, it can become a really great thing. And so we look at some of the great languages, and what I had here originally was Python and PHP along with R. And those are just three examples of so many of the great scripting languages that people use today. And they're all in the TIOBE top 50. They're extremely popular languages. They've been very successful. And they've been successful in large part because the community has embraced them and developed a lot of resources for them. And then when we look at all of the different languages, they may have different purposes and different characteristics, different design goals, different use cases, but they have a couple of common elements. The one common element we see is that most of them have a rather small core development team. So many of us, we're using LiveCode and we want to be able to contribute, and we think, well, gosh, I'm not a C++ programmer. I can't contribute to the engine, and I'm of no value. But really the opposite is true, because with most of these languages, the core dev team is just a few people. And the real strength of the community lies in another core element, massive script repositories. And that's people like you and me doing what we love to do. We love to script. And when we script useful libraries, useful components, and we share these with people, that helps the platform every bit as much as writing a feature in C++ for the engine. And it's really the strength of those types of resources that define the value of a given platform. So let's take a look at a couple of things that are happening in our LiveCode community now, a couple of special projects, and then I'm going to propose a couple as well. Currently we have, this is a fairly new project. We have a project called FastJSON. And here the developer took a look at two of the leading libraries for handling JSON within LiveCode, translating JSON into arrays and arrays into JSON. And he saw that EasyJSON was faster for creating arrays from JSON, but slower than the other one, libJSON, in creating JSON from arrays. So he took it upon himself. The license for those is quite open. It's an MIT license. He took the best of both of those and put those together into a new library called FastJSON. FastJSON, not surprisingly, benchmarks on par with the best of what each of those libraries has to provide both translating to and from arrays given JSON data. There's a forum thread for FastJSON that was started a couple days ago, and if you have time to test that, debug it, there might be an opportunity to optimize things. There might be a need to tidy up a few things, so it's worth taking a moment to look at that. Another one that I've come across in the last few months is called Platypus. There's also a thread in the open source section of the forums. And don't bother hunting those down right now. When we're done here, I'm going to take the links for these projects and I'm going to send them over to Peter Brett. And Peter Brett has been doing a wonderful job as the internal community liaison for the core development team. And as you may have seen, he's been publishing a summary of community activity every week. And so these links will be there in his next update. But if you're anxious to take a look at them now, you'll find all of these things discussed in the forum. Platypus is an especially interesting project. It's a maker application. And the developer, Matt Meyer, started out as a hardware hobbyist who likes to build things, mostly electronics. And he was looking for a tool to document his process, and he couldn't find, and he wanted a tool that could not only document his process, but also allow other people to collaborate with that documentation. So what he came up with is a tool that's useful for people who like to build things, and just on that level alone, if you have an interest in maker activities and building electronics, the tool will probably be useful, but I think it has even broader appeal than that. Because what he has is a diagramming system that's tied in with a really smart list view that allows forward and backward chaining to assemblies and things like that. So there's a lot going on with that, and he and I both believe that it's possible, if people were sufficiently interested, to dive into this project and see that it's well generalized enough. It could very well be a framework for a wide range of diagramming or process or inventory-related activities. So it's a very interesting project, well worth looking at, and there is a thread in the forums for this, and that and FastJSON are both on GitHub. RevIgniter is one that many of you may know. It's the premier web framework in the LiveCode world today. There are a few other frameworks, but Ralph Bitter, who put this together, has been doing a truly outstanding job. And if nothing else, the work he's done in maintaining the system, staying on top of bug reports, enhancing it, it's been really inspiring for all of us as we want to launch our own collaborative efforts, because I don't like any other open source project in our community maintained with such dedication. Over at LiveCode Journal, we host the discussion list for RevIgniter, and it's been really great to see him engage with contributors and users as he has. So if you're serious about doing web work with LiveCode Server, RevIgniter is a great framework, and even if you don't do much with servers at all, just looking at the documentation and the structure of his system is well worth learning from. He's done a tremendous job there. Another special project we have that's very important for all of us is LCVCS. This project is headed up by Monty Golding, and the goal here is to provide GitHub-compatible version control for LiveCode stack files. So that's what we talked about a minute ago with integration tools. We need a way to be able to decompose LiveCode stacks into a form that GitHub can operate with in order to take advantage of all of the other workflow tools that GitHub has for supporting open source work. LCVCS is, at this time, as far as I know, the most solution for this for LiveCode. There is still some work needed, I believe. There's a thread for this in the forums. If you have an interest in helping with that, even just testing that, that would be very helpful. So on to proposed projects. Now these are things I would like you folks to think about and spread the word if you find them of interest, and let's see if we can find people in the community who can help with these. One of these is Raspberry Pi. Many people enjoy the Raspberry Pi build that has been made, but Raspberry Pi is not an officially supported version of the LiveCode family. And with so much work that the team is involved with, I don't know that it will be anytime soon. And at the same time, we all love Raspberry Pi. And if you think about what Raspberry Pi is, it's the Linux engine that runs on ARM. So conceivably, though I haven't tried this myself, that Raspberry Pi build should very well run on other ARM devices running the same or very similar version of Linux. So it offers a lot of opportunity for us to use LiveCode in interesting contexts, but it's not current with the rest of the other platforms. So Fraser took it upon himself, Fraser Gordon at LiveCode, took it upon himself one weekend to build a Raspberry Pi version for us. And I think he's built at least one more after that, but he does rather have his hands full with, the full-time responsibilities with the things he's asked to maintain for the other platforms. So what I would like to see in a perfect world is that we have some people in the community who are comfortable with compilers, know their way around Linux, know just enough C to be able to do whatever massaging needs to be done, so that whenever a build of LiveCode is posted, that source code repository could be downloaded and a build could be made for Raspberry Pi, and we can share that amongst ourselves. So if you have an interest in doing that, let's talk about that. Let's see if we can put together a team and make that happen on a regular basis. Another thing is the IDE integration tools. We talked about these before. Any tool that can help the team rapidly identify changes between a submitted stack file and their master, and then to be able to rapidly review those changes, find which specific scripts, see the differences, which handlers have changed, which parts of those handlers have changed, and then to be able to merge those easily. So we need to identify, review, and merge. This could be done within binary stack files, and there is an array-based way of handling that. There's been some talk about taking other tools related to Monty's work for exporting to XML to do that. But if we can do this, the opportunity for us in the community is the team has agreed that once we have a tool that handles that part of the task, then they would consider looking at submissions for the IDE that are happening in the community. So even though it's more or less outside of GitHub proper, they're happy to go to the extra steps if we can provide a tool that makes those extra steps not very onerous. We want to make those as convenient for them as possible. So if this is of interest, let's talk and let's make that happen. Let's put the rubber on the road there. The last item is something that many people have been asking for a very long time, and it's something that many of us have built various forms of. And I'm proposing it here as a project because I think there are a lot of people in the community, certainly very many, with the skills to make it. And I think we can see the view of it right away if this text line were not truncated. That line should read field behavior for input and display filtering. And in detail, it looks like this. The field object that we have does a lot of great things, but what we don't have is something that some database tools offer. Properties that you can set to say this field handles only integers. This field accepts email or other, or date or other specialized formats. So that if it's a number field, then you could, when you try to type any non-numeric character, then it would just reject that. If it's currency, then it's going to accept a decimal point, but only one of them, because of course 2 would not be a valid number. So there's a lot of details like this that many of us have written, but many of us have written them. So I have a few things for that, somebody else has a few things for that. It'd be nice if we could bring all those together to have input filtering happening as a behavior script, and then goes further with it. Let's also have that behavior script handle display formats so that we can have currency and date and so forth. And when the user types, say, 1 in a field, and they tab out of the field sets the display so that it's a $1.00. And, for all the other formats we might want to do. So I'm imagining that this could happen from getProp and setProp handlers, and we might have properties named raw value and formatted value, but this is the sort of design decision we would want to decide amongst ourselves. And then between all of the different types of input filters and display options people have already written, once we establish a reasonably useful framework for how this works, and that's not going to be that hard, then we can have people coming in and saying, oh, I like that, let me add the euro symbol to that. And we have Unicode, that's not going to be hard to do. And somebody might want to add yen support for that. Somebody might want to add properties to allow us to define, is the thousand separator a comma or a period? Because of course it changes, it's different between the US and Europe. And other options like this. And I'm thinking that as a group effort, we can make something that is extremely useful in just a couple days' effort, with everyone contributing little bits, mostly to the design to make sure that it's a usable thing. But then as it continues to grow, we can find that a lot of people will be adding even more options to it, and it could become really quite a nice little project. Now the last item here is truncated, but it was supposed to have said migrate to widgets with a question mark. And the thought is this: currently we can't make this particular item as a widget, which is part of the reason why I propose it as a behavior. The behavior is also just a good fit for this anyway, and a behavior is fully compatible with LiveCode 7 or even LiveCode 6 and earlier, as well as being compatible with LiveCode 8, so it's a good fit. But the widget engine right now doesn't have text input capabilities, so it has a lot of flexibility for rendering things and drawing things, but not for doing text input. So this particular thing almost has to be done as a behavior today. Later, when the widget engine gets updated to include text input, perhaps we could consider taking the code that's already written and then updating that to have a widget version of this as well. And if somebody wants to take that on, once we have all of the other parts of this in place, then that becomes a much easier task. So I would like to invite you to just consider, would you like to contribute to a field format behavior script? I think it would be a useful thing for all of us to have. I want to announce I'm almost done with this preamble part, and we'll get to some Q&A, but we have a new initiative happening here. We've had very few community online chats, at least with myself as community manager. Todd Faubacher has a lot of experience doing this sort of thing. You may know him as the person who put together the Learn It with LiveCode series. And our community has a rich tradition of this, thanks to Bjornka, who used to have a wonderful program called LiveCode TV. And with LiveCode TV, he would have LiveCode seminars every Saturday. It was a very aggressive schedule, and ultimately such an aggressive schedule, it was hard to sustain that. What we would like to do, I was talking with Todd the other day, and we decided that it would be fun to have a series that happens at a fixed time every month. We'd be using Google On Air for that. So we're still working out the details of the timing, but we think the first one will happen in October. And so we might choose maybe, second Tuesday of each month or whatever we wind up doing, and then it will be at that time each month so that you can predict, I'm going to be there for November, December. I want to be there every month. And the format is going to be pretty flexible so that some of these sessions will be seminars. Some of these will be showing off tools in the community or special projects. Some of this will be demonstrating techniques. Some of it will just be open-ended Q&A. And we'll do all of this through Google On Air because as much as we love the good folks at GoToWebinar, Google On Air works on every platform, including Linux, so it's very easy for me to work with, and everyone else. So that's happening probably this month, and we'll get an announcement out to the forums and the use list on that, but I wanted to give you a heads up about that. So that takes care of my preamble to sort of bring us up to date with where we are with various community activities. Let's keep the conversation going. Beyond this talk, if there's anything we don't cover today, there's my email address, richard@livecode.org. Feel free to write me anytime about anything that you want to do related to community team building, starting a project, participating in a project, whatever you like. So with that in mind, I'm ready to take questions. Do we have questions? I'm not seeing any in the questions box. Mildred, is that a limitation on my part, or do we just not have questions right now?
I'm just scrolling for 2 seconds.
Oh, I see. Wait. This interface.
There are a few questions.
This interface keeps being in selected mode. Okay. Are we both live, or are we off right now?
No, we're still live.
Okay. Well, it's nice if we're both there because this software in the question list, there are no questions evident.
Let me just see. Right. Okay. So questions. Where can we be kept up to date on the community meeting?
On the community what?
Oh, it says, where can we be kept up to date on the community meeting?
Oh, we're going to be publishing that in the forums, in the community section there, as well as on the Use LiveCode mailing list. And if for any reason you're both not able to visit the forums and also not a subscriber to the Use list, feel free to drop me an email at the address we see here on screen, and I'll send you a notice as soon as we have the date set up for that.
I should have mentioned the name. That was from Jeremy Severson. Another question from Brian Duck. Will you send the slides in a PDF from the Linux version and share them with us?
I'm flattered that you would like them. I can not only send you slides, I can send you slides with complete text strings. So I'll generate those on Linux. In fact, you know, this ties in with our global jam we have, because we've had a lot of fixes happening. And one of the most recent fixes we had was fixing an issue with generating print output on the Linux platform where I originally formatted these things. So yeah, I can send you a PDF, and it will be a nice PDF. So please drop me an email to that address there, richard@livecode.org, and I will happily make a PDF for you. In fact, the tool that I make these in, I do a lot of speaking, and I really like using LiveCode to do this. So I made a little outline tool here that lets me quickly build slides in outline form. And one of the things it lets me do is print to PDF using LiveCode's built-in capabilities for that. So it won't take me long at all, and I'll be happy to do it.
Question from Clarence Martin asking if there's a possibility of having guerrilla sessions. Not quite sure. Is that a similar thing to the global jam that's happening now, or might need a bit more clarification on what that means?
Yeah, what type of session?
Gorilla. Gorilla? I think it's...
Gorilla.
Yeah, Gorilla.
Well, Clarence is a troublemaker. I say that jokingly. He's a good friend of mine. We spend a fair amount of time together. He's a very regular member of our user group, and in fact, our last meeting was devoted to working with him. It was a really great club.
Aha, right. He's just said LiveCode Jam sessions locally.
What was the last word?
He just said local
LiveCode, okay.
Jam sessions, yeah.
Yes, sort of like local hackathons, is
Yes.
that what you're thinking of?
It sounds like
yes.
it, yes.
I say yes.
Yes,
yes.
he's agreed.
Chip, yes, and okay, no, great idea. We definitely want to do that. And as we are finding our way with the Global Jam format, that's always been a part of the vision, but the parts that we have in place now taken just to get this far. But I think we're beginning to hit our stride. So now we can expand on it to do things like local meetups during the global jams. A lot of other projects like Ubuntu does exactly that. In addition to online meetings and online integration with the core team for bug sprints like this, there's also a lot of very local activities in local user groups. So I would be happy to get, like our meeting room that you and I meet in, Chip, and I know there are many other user groups that meet, and it would be a lot of fun to encourage them to schedule meetings during this time and use this as a way of getting together and improving both LiveCode's quality as well as our own code quality. So excellent idea, and a big yes to that.
Next one's not so much a question, it's from Larry Walker. He liked the work that you're proposing, and he'd like to talk to you and Max about edu outreach in the future.
Thank you. For those who don't know Larry, we had a panel at the conference last year, and we had Devin Acey and Claire Braden-Siskin, Max Schaefer, and Larry Walker as panelists discussing how LiveCode is so valuable, the various ways LiveCode is valuable in educational environments. Larry is a very experienced educator, and I had not met him before, but he was on that panel because every other panelist I spoke to said, you got to get Larry here. So Larry, yes, let's talk. Send me an email. We'll talk by phone. You already know Max, and Max is our point person for those types of things. And this also goes for everybody else who is a teacher or has any interest at all in LiveCode and education. Get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Max, who was our team leader with that, and let's share some ideas. We also have a section in the forum. I think it is part of the open source subforum set up for teaching with LiveCode. And go there, and we can have conversations there. I would like to have a global jam just focused on education, too. I think there's an awful lot we can do with that. So let's be in touch, and we'll put that together.
Right, next question from William Jameson. When talking about building better fields, would there be a way to make them work better on mobile?
That's an interesting question. And if I had a little more time, I have some pretty heavy projects right now that I'm doing for clients, but we have native controls in LiveCode for mobile, but they're not drag and drop controls. So we have a way within LiveCode to script access for native controls. And a lot of the field properties that we have with built-in LiveCode fields are directly supported with these native commands and functions. So my theory was that we could set up a type of field with really just some properties managed by a front script so that on pre-open card, the card is scanned for any control with a couple of properties set, and one of these properties might be conceivably named something like, you know, I would name it like this, but just for clarity here, auto instantiate on mobile. And then you work with LiveCode fields how you want to work with them. And if you drop in a single line field with auto tab set to true, that behavior for the desktop is pretty much a direct corollary to a single line entry field on mobile. So why not have a script automatically instantiate that for you? So yes, we can do a lot of things to smooth out a lot of the workflow there, and accordingly some aspects of what we're talking about with the behavior can definitely apply. However, we don't have all of the messaging within native fields that we have in LiveCode fields. So I would say take that good question and let's form this team and let's participate there and let's explore that, because mobile is obviously an important component of our software deployments, and where we can, it would be good to have as much support for mobile for this type of field object as there is on desktop.
Great. So there's another question from Brian Duck. You mentioned that LT6 is nearing EOL. Is there a published process for building and publishing iOS apps from LC7 and LC8?
It should be the same. If it isn't, file a bug report. If you're talking about just building for iOS and building for Android, is that correct?
Just iOS.
Okay, but yeah, the process should be the same. And in fact, given that 7 is very much the focus of everything right now, it is the current product, version 6 was a transitional stage to get to version 7. So if there's anything that you're able to do in 6 that you can't do in 7, and certainly if you can't do it in 8, please report it as soon as possible. And one of the things that we're doing with this Global Jam is we have the entire LiveCode engineering staff on tap. They are, right now, I kid you not, sitting there waiting in the bug queue for your bug report. And as soon as it comes in, they will immediately triage it. They'll try to reproduce it. They'll see if it's in the scope of things they can handle. And if they can fix it in near real time today, they will do that. And if not, at least it'll be queued for resolution very quickly. So I would say if you're using version 6 for anything, building for mobile or anything else, run those things in 7. Also run them in the 8 DP to make sure that we don't have any regressions introduced in version 8. You know, in theory, LiveCode 7 should be part of 8 and everything should be transparent, but I find it's helpful, test in 7 and test in 8, and anything that you're doing in version 6 should be easily carried forward, and where it isn't, it's a bug report. So please check that out for us and report what you find.
Question from Simon Asato. He would like to know who is Peter B. Peter Brent.
Peter Brett. Peter Brett is a good friend I've never met. Because I've come to like him a lot, see, but the thing is, I've never met him. He joined the company, I think, just after last year's conference.
Yes, Peter joined.
And so I got to know him because a bunch of us were doing, what, October, November?
Yep, around about October time last year, yes.
Yeah. So it was right after we had the conference, and the conference was a great time to meet a lot of the other people on the team, but Peter joined after that. And I was introduced to Peter in the course of working on some benchmarking stuff that was happening that Multi had initiated. And Peter is a super smart guy, but that kind of goes true for everyone there. Mostly Mildred, but everyone else is also almost as smart as Mildred.
Thank you.
So Peter's in the almost as smart as Mildred category. He's obviously really super bright. They have a lot of super bright there. Peter doesn't stress this very much, but he does hold a doctorate.
Why has he got his own blogs?
Why does he have his own blogs?
Yes.
I think it's because it's what he likes to do. I think he just really enjoys LiveCode Builder. He's also worked on the HTML5 project, and he's just sort of keen to do that. And he can do it on the company blog, and I don't know what their internal process is, but as an outsider looking in, I look at this and I think, you know, the more blogs talking about LiveCode, the better. As a team member, it's certainly nice when he does publish stuff within, you know, under the moniker of the company, but he just spends a lot of his spare time with LiveCode as well. So he's a super smart developer, strong Linux advocate, very knowledgeable about Linux. He's helped with the build system that they use and with LiveCode Server. Helped me resolve, he and Mark Waddingham both helped me resolve a very sticky issue with Server, and they came up with a good solution for that. He's been looking a bit at some of the optimization issues that we've been exploring, and a lot of his work has gone into HTML5. So that's what I know of Peter Brett. He's a super nice guy. He's also their internal counterpart to what I am in terms of community advocate. You know, managing all the various projects where community and core team need to interface. It's helpful to have point people for that. And so we have various teams for our projects, but anything those teams can't do directly, then I'm happy to help with that. And Peter does that for the LiveCode side. So he understands open source process and is very supportive of it and very good at it.
We've got a question from Clarence, which I can probably answer. It's, is there any information as to where the next LiveCode conference is going to be? So this is still in planning at the moment. We've got nothing that we can quite share with everyone yet, but as soon as we know, we'll be sure to let you all know where it's going to be and when it's going to be. There is one last question here from Roboto. Developing both for desktop and mobile, I think some work should be done in LC in getting a clearer distinction, integration in commands, functions, dictionary, etc. for the two platforms. If you try to translate a desktop app to mobile, you'll know what I mean. Is this something that is going to happen?
Are you talking about the workflow in the code or making sure that the docs clearly distinguish what's available?
Docs, was what he said.
Box, maybe both?
I think it's the documents.
The documents.
Yeah.
The documents, yeah, documentation in the dictionary. User Guide is undergoing a radical overhaul, and given all of the changes in the LiveCode platform, that's a bit of work. The user guide that we have is really good for desktop, doesn't have a lot for mobile, and the mobile stuff is handled in separate mobile guides, which you'll find online. In version 8, that's beginning to become more integrated, but the real key for all of this is the dictionary. And so what I hope you will find with the dictionary is that for any given function or command you're looking up, that you will see platform identifiers for where that can be used. If you find any that are missing, incomplete, or wrong, file a bug report. And the cool thing about documentation bug reports is they tend to get acted on really fast because they're kind of easy to fix. But you should be able to see that things are very clearly distinguished. And they have also tried for mobile-specific things, things that just simply don't work on the desktop. Most of those, certainly many of them, are prefaced with the word mobile. And so if you go to the dictionary and you just search by mobile, filter by mobile, you'll immediately see a whole bunch of mobile commands and functions. And those are exclusive to mobile and a good overview of mobile capabilities. There are some exceptions to that, though. What do you think about that? There aren't many, actually, now that I think about it. There aren't many exceptions to that. Most of the mobile-specific stuff is prefaced with mobile. And where you find any issue with the dictionary or any issue with language design that doesn't make those distinctions clear, either bring it up in the forums or file a bug report, and if it can be made that much better, that's really important for all of us because we need to use this, and most importantly, we need to make sure that newcomers can use this very easily. So your eye to help refine that is going to be very helpful.
Lotus just put in another message, iPhone, Android, mobile. Not quite sure what that means in relation to the question.
I'm guessing that has to do with the workflow side of things. Yeah, there is something that becomes a habit once you do it more often, and I'm sure Will can talk about, his own migration as a developer where he starts doing one thing and then you start getting certain habits. When we start out with using the mobile-specific commands and functions, we just put those in our code. It seems like a good idea at the time, but it means we can't really run other things there without throwing errors because those are mobile specific. They require a mobile device. So over time you start getting into a habit of using the platform function. And so you can ask, if the platform is Android or iOS, then, and you can have a block of mobile specific stuff. And the nice thing about that is it lets us work much more gracefully while we're building on the desktop and still have that code executing on mobile. I hope that helps.
Got a few more questions that's just come in. Simon saying, LiveCode 8 is not usable on Windows 7. How can this happen?
I was just gonna. Well, the first answer that comes to mind as a longtime Mac and more recently Linux user is a snarky comment about Windows. But the fact is, yeah, that's just a cheap shot. And I'll have to admit that with Windows 8.1 and version 10, I'm actually kind of enjoying Windows again, and it's been nice to see the progress they've been making. So I don't really have a snarky answer there. The bottom line is Windows still has more than 85% of the desktop market. It's one of the most important platforms around. Anything that isn't silky smooth with LiveCode on Windows is a LiveCode bug. So as you come across things, report them. If it's a really obvious thing, there's probably a good chance it's been reported and they're probably working on it, we hope. So take a search in the bug database. If you don't see something right away, go ahead and flag it. But do submit that. And with any bug report, try to submit a recipe that's easy to follow. Do this, do this, do this, and then you will see this result. If it's a rendering issue, then there are a set of things that have been going on with within Windows and changes within LiveCode to accommodate more enhanced resolution independence within Windows. And there are some rendering anomalies I've heard reported. But regardless of its type, all things that impair the user experience on Windows need to be looked at, so please do file bug reports if you don't find one already there.
Right, we've got about 5 minutes to go and a few more questions. So Clarence is asking, I would like to see more video tutorials for such things as optimization.
I'm looking forward to the video tutorials Clarence will produce for us also. So thank you for offering that, Clarence. That's very generous of you. I look forward to I'm glad to hear that the format worked for you, and I'll forward that feedback on to Todd. The monthly series that we're doing will include some tutorials, so that'll be good. As far as tutorials made by the team at LiveCode, I'm sure they intend to do more, but I'm not sure how much more, and so maybe that could be another community sharing project. There are a lot of tutorials out there on YouTube about LiveCode, and only some of them are made by the company. A lot of them are made by people like you and me. So maybe we can find a lot there. I would check YouTube, and maybe, Clarence, we might make some. You have a very good voice for that sort of thing. That could be a good video. So let's make that happen. Let's make more videos.
Sounds good. Question for Multi. Is there any chance that the roadmap gets updated more frequently?
It's possible. And that's a very good question, because I was talking about this with Peter and Ali on the team I guess last week at our meeting, maybe the week before. We have, you probably know, Multi's been around for a long time, so Multi probably knows Peter Wood, who's been very active with LiveCode for a very long time. And I think it was Peter Wood who had started updating a list of roadmap goals, and he shared these on the use list a couple weeks ago. And I contacted him separately, and I said, Peter, you did a really good job with that, and I know the team has a hard time staying on top of that while they're also knocking off those goals. So I said, if we can find a way to take your good work and have you update a page for that, would you be interested in doing that? And he said yeah. He said he would consider that. So I brought it up with the team, and there are a lot of changes that they would like to make with the website to support a great many different sections where content is updated by community members. But that's one that came up, so we would definitely like to have that, and we think we have a person dedicated to helping that happen right away.
Sorry, I've just had a flurry of questions coming in.
Okay.
So that was Multi that said something else, especially with data points on how far along things are.
Oh yes, that is hard. However, and I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but if you ask this question to the use list, Peter Brett will see it and give you that URL right away. There is a URL for GitHub, which gives us sort of a near real-time profile of what's happening with the project. So you can see pull requests and questions about pull requests, all sorts of stuff happening at one time. There is another URL that provides a summary view of specific versions and percentage complete. I don't have either URL off the top of my head. If you go to the GitHub repository for LiveCode, you may find them on your own, and if you don't find them, drop a note in the use list, and one of us will turn those up for you.
Okay, last 2 minutes and last 2 questions. Clarence has just replied to your earlier comment about making a tutorial together, that he will make one with you.
All right, thumbs up.
I've got a question from Bruce Humphrey. I believe it's quite similar to Multi's. Bruce is a new developer, and he's finding some significant gaps in developing a roadmap of where to find information and where to look things up. So keeps stumbling across new resources. Any plans to create a roadmap or where to find the information? And then he clarified to say it's a different type of roadmap from the development one. If there isn't one, who should he submit one to?
Okay, let me see if I understand the question. The question is about when we think of a roadmap, that usually applies to progress of the development team. But in this case, help me ascertain that I understand this correctly. You're looking for one useful index to onboarding materials, learning materials for LiveCode. Do I understand that correctly?
I believe it's to find information and where all the resources are being kept. But oh yes,
resources for
Bruce
learning
has just said yes, that's correct.
Okay, Bruce, you're not alone. And right now, I would say of all the people in this room, of all the names that have been mentioned, I know most of them, and they're not as important as you. And I'll tell you why. Because we're already using LiveCode, and as a newcomer, you're bringing a perspective from the outside that is extremely important to us, because that's the perspective from the other 90% of users that we will be acquiring in the years going forward. So we really need people who come in and say, this is my problem. So be vocal about any issue you have, whether it's learning or a particular command or function or anything in the IDE. Be vocal. Consider the forums as a place for that. LiveCode 8 is the company's effort to centralize all of the various learning resources they have. So we're moving to a world where there will be one unified place for that. We're not quite there because there are a lot of them and they're in various different formats. So I would say that if you raise this question in the forums, I think there is a section on documentation, but wherever you feel like doing it, I check new messages there. Let's talk about it there, and I'll provide an overview of some useful things to get you started. And I think it'll be a good discussion to have in general because you're asking the question, but I find that for every question that gets asked, there's probably 50 people who had the question who didn't ask it, so it'll be very helpful if you wouldn't mind asking it there, and I'll provide some links for you.
Great. Okay, we're just running out of time, so I've got just the last two questions. Second last one.
Okay.
Many of us have little IDE hacks that we use to change the way the IDE looks and additions that add functionality. At the moment, these have to be hard-coded into each release. Would it be possible to have a way that these hacks could be submitted for inclusion into the distributed IDE? It's a question by Andy.
There are two ways to handle hacks. For one, if you can see in the top left of my monitor, my window is colored to match the Ubuntu desktop theme, and the fonts are a little more spaced out. There's a whole thing that I've done to mod my IDE to fit Ubuntu. And I do this in a way that doesn't actually modify the IDE because it's for my own use, and the changes are applied on startup so that every version has the changes applied, and if I want to see a native install, I just remove my patcher plugin and it all works. If you want to submit something for everyone to do, then that's part of the integration issue that we have, the integration tools opportunity, where we need to find a way to be able to make changes and have those changes submitted in LiveCode stacks. But you know how LiveCode stacks are structured, so the challenge is we want to be able to help the team quickly see, oh, okay, these are the two scripts that changed, these are the two handlers that changed. So let's make that integration thing happen, and then we can make tools like that available directly in the IDE. In the meantime, if you'll notice, Richmond has been in our community a long time, and he's been doing some patches. So he may have some tips for how to make at least patches for yourself and patches that you can share with people. But to share them with everyone, let's get these integration tools in place, and then we can definitely do that. And do we have one more, Mildred? Are we out? I think we're out. So if this is still being recorded, I'm going to sign off. I appreciate all the questions. And we can keep this conversation running by emailing me at richard@livecode.org. So we'll see you online. Thanks for participating.